Hello. So our next panel is on generative AI and the future of financial advice. So could I please welcome to join me on the stage Mehdi Fitchali, who's the founder and chief executive of Finamze, Elemi Atigolo, who is the founder of Finley AI, and Ramin Hassani, who's an AI research affiliate at MIT, where he works in the computer science and artificial intelligence lab. Welcome. Um, so virtually every conversation I have had, and I cover capital markets, so I sort of speak to people in the financial world, people in the business world, but virtually every conversation I've had over the last year has started with the potential for generative AI. It seems like once ChatGPT was released, and then kind of particularly in the first half of this year, no one was thinking about anything else. A story that I have actually heard from multiple people who sit on boards is of a company considering an acquisition. Uh, a lot of work going into it going in front of the board, and then in one of the late on meetings, one member says, "But have we considered how AI will impact this?" And then the acquisition scuppered within sort of half an hour of discussion. So we all hear a lot about it, and I want to ask you what kind of paradigm shifts you actually think it's going to bring out in financial services. But one of the frustrations with this topic is we seem to talk in generalities an awful lot. We talk about exponential growth, we talk about large language models, we talk about sort of this kind of abstract revolution. I'd like to get concrete, and by asking you how you think it's going to change financial services, can I ask you to pick your favorite example of an actual application of generative AI that perhaps already is, or perhaps in the future will change financial services? Elemi, why don't we start with you?
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Joshua. One of the things of the excitement of generative AI and why we're probably hearing such of the buzz is it's the first time in history where machines are actually learning how humans speak our language, our knowledge, where all the years before, humans had to understand machine language. And so when we look at that particular scope and we look at the paradigms, start to see the various opportunities. So if we look at the scope and space, the areas that come to mind is the ability to dissect and analyze data. And one example would be, say, Morgan Stanley. Over the last 8 months, they were probably first in that wealth management space to look to utilize their data and apply generative AI to dissemble that information. And so you get to an area where you have a democratization of information, and that helps and benefits industries and individuals, and in their case, their advisors. If I was to look at another example of that particular arena, I'd probably like to say the area that we've been working on, probably at Finley AI, which is dissembling the information to essentially provide a version of a humanized counterpart, your entry to financial advisory via an assistant. And that's again a democratization of information and knowledge across the boundaries.
And with both of those examples, which are excellent ones, what are we talking about? Technology that is already available? Are we talking about something that might be possible in 5 years? What's the kind of timeline
Yeah,
on this being rolled out to
yeah,
customers?
of course. So if we look at the first example, that's already available. If we look at Morgan Stanley, they use a version of what they call retrieval augmented generation, which is essentially utilizing their data and then utilizing a generative AI model, large language model, to access that information and provide that in a human-like fashion or text editation to their advisors. With the case that we've been working on with Finley AI, probably since about 2019, is about harnessing the information and ensuring that what comes out as the output is through structured guidance, following frameworks that an advisor would utilize.
Ramin, what's your favorite example of AI and how it's changing financial services?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of things. So I think what we have today is, and what's available today is like service, like chatbots, and maybe, like looking into like financial statements and try to ask questions, like parsing those. And then, so service is already there, and there are early adopters of this in the industry. But what we want to create out of it would be a financial advisor. So that would be something that has to get created. And it's in the process of, like people are going towards that direction of like personalized financial advice to democratize kind of access to financial advice, like really good quality. And then the level after that is an agent that can sell. So if you can generate like an agent, but that's like, again, future, So you create something that can sell your product as a kind of AI system that can communicate with a human and convinces the human that this is basically the way you want to go. So that would be like basically the next step.
That sounds sort of quite spooky. The things that some people warn us AI might do, which is try to influence people. How soon do you think that sort of salesperson GPT is going to be available?
Yeah, I mean, in this space, you need to always watch out for the privacy matters, for the, like the regulatory matters around the AI system, and which will come hopefully later on. And but yeah, so I mean, you have to create that. It's a scary kind of future, but it's still like from the science point of view, we have some ideas how to tackle that. Matters like differential privacy, formal methods that we actually try to guarantee the safe execution of basically AI systems. That's like something that is also an area that is getting massive amount of funding right now from the academic kind of domain.
Thank you. And Mehdi, can I come to you now? What's your favorite example of AI and its use in financial services?
Yeah, definitely. Well, the world discovered AI with ChatGPT, but AI was there. And actually, to make ChatGPT, you had to work on it for several years. As far as we are concerned, we started tackling and using AI in our business since 2018. And we're live and using it live since November 2020, so 3 years ago. What is interesting is that AI can be of help to the finance industry at multiple levels. We took a certain view, and our view came from the fact that we are asset manager by profession. Myself and all my board, we've been in the finance industry almost for 20 years each. And what we decided to do is the following. You see, when we talk about democratization, it's the fact that when you have several $1 million to invest and you go to a private bank, private banker will sit with you. You will have portfolio manager who will be taking care of you, a relationship manager who will be understanding your risk, and they all will be building the right portfolio that will be suitable for you and only for you, and it will be discretionary managed. But in order for this industry to provide the same service for people who have got $20,000 to invest, for example, that's almost impossible because 1% after $20,000 is $200. It will not be it will not make sense. So what we wanted is to try to understand how can we use this technology in order to lower the threshold, and we succeeded because we know how exactly things work in the asset management world. You have the investment committee, you have the CIO who decide basically and put in place templates, and then let the RMs or the junior portfolio managers tailor make this template to each single client. Our idea is to replace these juniors by an AI who will behave like a junior asset manager, like a junior financial advisor, and who will be able to understand the personality, the risk profile of each individual investor, not from the traditional circumstantial factors such as age, number of dependents, wealth, experience, objectives, but also that could take into account their own behavior. So our AI studies the behavior of our customers and is able to build a unique risk profile out of 4,000 possible. And this unique risk profile will be used by the AI again in order to build a dedicated portfolio for that particular individual. And this AI will be able to rebalance it. And here comes the question. How could it be dangerous? Could the AI go wrong? Indeed, it go because the people who program and code the AI sometimes are surprised by themselves with the result that the AI can come up with. So our idea is to always put the AI between the hands of the investment committee. The investment committee writes in the marble the constraints or the limits within which the AI can intervene. And by doing so, we achieve two things. And this is what the AI, in my opinion, will be able to disrupt this industry. It gives an extraordinary tool of computation, of assembling, of executing between the hands of the investment committee. So the investment committee doesn't need to know all the clients. He just needs to know the AI, and the AI will translate whatever they want for the taste of each single client.
It's a sort of very kind of utopian version of how asset management and allocation could work. It always leaves me wondering. You actually touched on it yourself. A lot of these tasks are tasks that kind of junior analysts will perform, and it's what teaches them about the industry. I always wonder what the junior analysts of the future are going to actually be doing to learn about the industry when it's an AI bot doing these things. But Ramin, you have quite a deep insight into the technology that underlie, or I guess the logic that underlies these models. We've all talked in different ways, or you've all talked in different ways about using AI to take on a lot of data, kind of sort it and make different kinds of decisions, on what wealth advice to give a client, on the asset allocation that's sort of suitable for a given situation. In your case, on sales, what is it about today's AI models that make them kind of suited to that task, taking on vast amounts of data and making decisions that we would formerly have left up to humans to do?
Yeah, so at the core of any kind of AI system, like today's AI systems, there's a learning system. So these systems, they learn from data to generalize within the scope of that data that they've been trained in order to perform a task. Okay, so this is called machine learning, right? So this is actually kind of a transition from rule-based systems that we had before, right, into like more learning systems, and now they're becoming like more and more commercialized. So so the idea is that what we see today as the field actually grow, the field of machine learning, it now became deep learning. So we make larger and larger systems. These are like layer-wise neural networks. They tend to mimic the brain, like they were designed to mimic the human brain, but they vastly kind of shifted from that direction as well. But they became kind of efficient algorithms that we can scale them, and they can digest a large amount of data in a compressed manner. So you can think about it as a compression kind of system. So it compresses data in an accessible manner that you can actually take it and now use this compressed amount of knowledge graph to generate content out of it. This is what generative AI is actually is.
And as you just touched on, and Mehdi touched on as well, they can do this kind of data crunching decision making in a way that is much cheaper than employing a person to do it. Elemi, what do you think the scope is, given that automation of a lot of these processes simply does make them a lot cheaper? What is the scope for this to improve access to wealth management advice in the population?
Really good question and a good point there. When we look at the financial advisory space, the wealth management space, that's typically only been available to a selective few. And what these models and this form of technology is able to do is really activate the scale mechanism. We're in a time at the moment where we're going to see a lot of changes. If we think about the next 10 to even 15 years, we're in a position where we're about to see a transfer of wealth. It's been estimated anywhere between 70 to 100 trillion. And that wealth will go into the hands of individuals that will learn about finance and investment and access in a very different manner. And so what these models are able to do and allow is to really provide a type of communication pattern that will be similar to a human-like empathetic position, which has never really been seen before. And what that does, it creates a great opportunity for those forward-thinking companies, because if this transfer of wealth that we will see, and we know that the communication styles that we are seeing now through these types of models will continue and look to continue, it means that by tapping into that type of position, it puts the firm or company or enterprise in an area that they can really tap into that next generation of wealth that's coming.
And what do you think, as a sort of as an average user of these services, previously an average user of wealth management services would have been more wealthy than they probably will be in the future. They would have gone to a nice looking office, had a very interesting meeting with their wealth manager, gone over sort of their sort of goals, their current asset allocation, their sort of risk profile, and got some asset allocations out of it and sort of advice for what to do. What would the future user of a wealth management services experience be like?
Yeah, one of the things that we expect would be, a vision of hyper personalization. At the moment, in the wealth management space, having spent almost 2 decades in that space, you tend to know your clients, to every level. Now, being able to replicate that previously was almost near impossible. But these models allow that to actually be a reality, where your own personal financial AI will know about what you like, why you like it, what you're trying to achieve. If we think about the whole entire wealth management space or financial industry in that regards, often we talk about the products, the investments, the asset allocation, where ultimately it's about what the end individual is trying to achieve, whether that might be a legacy position, whether that's philanthropy or so forth. And that can be represented in having your own personal connection, whether that's via an app, via voice, via RI, for example. So that's what we will expect to see the future to be, or present in some regards.
So that's the sort of the user of these services experience. Mehdi, how much do you think it's going to change the industry itself? What do you think the asset management and wealth management industry of the future will look like with AI being used much more
So,
widely?
to answer your question, let me try to use an example that we all know. Remember the relationship that we had with our bankers in the early 2000s. Whenever you wanted to do a transfer or you're expecting some money to reach your account, you need to call and you were waiting for the mail to arrive, so as you can check your statement and make sure that it arrived or didn't arrive. Well, and then the progress that happened once we had our app. If you ask the banks about how many clients an RM was at that time able to follow, the answer will be perhaps 70, 100 individual clients. But thanks to the app, it went up tenfold. Today, the average RM is able to follow 1,000 customers, perhaps even more. Why? Because he speaks only with those who have got a problem with their app. The app takes it all. And the RM has got a dashboard and he sees exactly what everybody has done, what each client does, and if he wants to zoom in someone, he can. This is exactly what is going to happen in the wealth management. So that means that an RM who today can only build portfolios and understand the life of 30 individual investors, today, thanks to this AI, he will be able to follow 300, perhaps 400. So a huge increase of productivity, which means that he will have more time to basically spend time with the clients and not to understand them. What we believe is that AI is a powerful tool that can do a lot of things. It computes better than us. It works 24/7. It is hyper fast and reactive. Whatever happens in the news, it is able to take a lot of data and treat them in a way that humans cannot do. Perhaps you will lead an army of junior analysts in order to do the same work within the same time frame. But at the same time, the AI is not necessarily able today to build this human touch. Of course, we can always try, but what we think is that we want to free the RM in order to let him do what the humans are best at and let the AI, let the algorithms do what they are better than us. And to answer your question, what will these junior analysts do? In my opinion, they will start to become coders of the AI that will do the system. I had a discussion recently with one of my previous bosses who today has retired, and he told me the revolution of Excel in the banking space was huge. Before Excel, people need almost to use their calculators in order to conduct all these calculations. Today, any junior analyst can do the work of 10 junior analysts 20 years back. This is the same thing that will happen in the wealth management.
Yes, as somebody who started out in finance as an Excel monkey, I do remember that quite a lot. You touched on two really interesting themes there, which we've all been talking about, which are intense scalability that this is going to bring to the wealth management phase, and also one that I find actually even more interesting, which is you mentioned it freeing up humans to do more of the stuff that humans are good at doing. So do you see the sort of the wealth or financial advisor of the future as doing just much less time on analysis and much more time building relationships, or are there other aspects to that?
Yes, definitely. For a certain type of wealth managers, those will be the relationship managers. The portfolio managers will keep on doing what they are doing today, and the AI will give them the comfort because they can use it. They don't have the time to read necessarily 100 articles per day. Our AI, for example, is quite easy. It deducts sentiment analysis and rates stocks between -1 and +1, depending if the sentiment derived from the articles is positive or negative. The AI also is capable of crunching a huge amount of data and is able to build momentum, technical analysis. In the big firms, you will have one guy who does technical analysis all day long, and whenever he is asked by the portfolio manager, will give his opinion on a stock or on a security. Well, today, by the press of a button, in a couple of seconds, the PM can have this kind of analysis, and it can go in a very multi-layered way to analyze it. So all in all, the AI will not allow us to predict where the stock market will be tomorrow. Nobody can be in the head of Jerome Powell and know what the Fed will do tomorrow and what kind of reactions this will impact the market. But for sure, we will be much more equipped in order to see things coming and in order to allow our clients' portfolio be balanced, rebalanced in a way that can profit from what's happening or protect if the information is negative.
So we're definitely talking about a very exciting, a very dynamic time for the industry. But Ramin, the other side of advances in AI is this sort of proliferation of data that is involved, both the sort of proprietary data that firms are sort of keeping and sorting through, and the sort of increasing digitization of personal information. All of it raises concerns of data privacy and concerns of cybersecurity. How much do you think the Aston wealth management industries are going to have to move to improve their position in data privacy and cybersecurity, and what are the big sort of challenges and risks there?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a huge kind of, amount of kind of funding and research is actually going into understanding privacy, understanding the risks of AI and the ethics of AI, how to use those kind of systems. And the academics are actually developing solutions for really like finding out how to, ensure the privacy of models that are being used. And one of the main solutions that we have is on explainability and developing explainable AI kind of solutions. That would be like one of the main things. Like, and explainability is not necessarily just developing first a model and then try to understand its decision. But by design, when you're actually in the training process of the model, you enforce constraints and things that you want to have. Like, it could be regulatory matters, it could be privacy matters, it could be, like things that you actually want to enforce the system to learn, And yeah, so I think this is the direction that we're going, like explainable AI, and there has to be a focus for the entire industry as a whole to look into these elements and ensure basically the safe deployment of this system to ensure private use.
Do you think cybersecurity standards in the industry are kind of keeping up with the pace of change in AI, or is there a mismatch?
Not this at the same rate, So there's definitely like work to be done, but I see a big shift like in the academic kind of domain again, that funding is going into safe AI and really matters of privacy and security, and that's a good news because everything actually evolves. And I think AI is like a different technology because the evolution of the systems are extremely fast, right? And then so the gap between going from research into industry, it's like narrowing down. So I think development of solutions directly from academia, then taking it into the industry is like something that, you know, it's happening, and it has to happen like a lot faster in the safe AI domain. Yeah.
Now, another issue that Ramin touched on there was explainability, which for a lot of people, I guess, for a lot of particularly lay people thinking about AI, this is the big hurdle to get over in trusting it. Why would I take financial advice from this black box where I'm simply trusting that it has made good decisions on my behalf, but it might be actually quite tricky to plumb out from a machine learning model how it has arrived at those decisions. What kind of, Mehdi, maybe I come to you, what kind of safeguards do you think need to be in place to make sure consumers actually trust how these models are sort of advising and trading on their behalf?
So a very good question, and believe me, a lot of clients ask us the same. For us, we don't see AI as a goal. For us, AI is a tool. It's a tool at the hands of the human who are sitting within the wealth management or within the asset manager. And therefore, whatever the AI does should be of the responsibility of the wealth manager, of the asset manager. It is his choice to follow the AI or not to follow it. And it's each choice, or his or her choice, to let the space large for the AI to take anything that it wants or to reduce it. And what we believe is probably one of the most efficient ways of doing it is adopting this hybrid approach, whereby the human will always decide the space within which the AI can perform. In a very relative calmcy, indeed, pilot or in a relatively calm atmosphere, pilots will let the autopilot get on while keeping an eye on the sky to watch that the weather is okay. But when there is turbulence, then believe me, all the pilots will take off the autopilot and they will put their hands in order to bring the plane to the safe place. And this is how I see it working for us and probably for the system from now on. AI should be used in a hybrid human AI model by which the human will always have the upper hand and by which the human will decide when and for what and to what extent should the AI be used.
Thank you. And Elemi, in your view, what are the things that firms need to do, both on an ethical basis, but also from the commercial perspective of keeping users' trust in their AI processes? What needs to be done to make sure you can trust the robots?
Really, really good point. Trust, especially in the industry, is paramount. We're inside the wealth management, we're inside the financial sector. As you're dealing with clients, you're dealing with some of the most important aspects of their lives. And so when you look at the use of AI, you have to not look at it in a silo. You have to really look at all sections and all sectors of that position. So that's in terms of how you look to implement that process. These types of implementations should be through a very rigorous approach, looking at both the input and also looking at also the output. Often what we hear about is just looking, especially in this case, the generative AI in one of itself. But what you have to look at is, well, how do I utilize this particular tool, as Mehdi said, how do we utilize this tool and wrap around that the same types of trust positions that I would normally take? The practicality of ensuring that users' data is secure, what goes in, and also secure in terms of what goes out. In terms of building trust, that can take time. But what we are seeing now, which has probably come at some surprise, people are trusting machines a lot more, and we're seeing adoption really grow in this space. And because of that, it really means that firms and industries really have to act fast in terms of what they do, because they can be left behind, and it can also open up the environment for bad actors inside of that particular space.
And And just on that sort of that point of people starting to trust machines a lot more, that's absolutely fascinating. Raman, you spoke about a scenario right at the start where people would need to trust machines an awful lot more. You know, if you were to be sold products by an AI, you would definitely need to trust that it was sort of being honest, working in your best interest, all that sort of thing. What do you think? When you look at the future of how AI models are being developed, do you see reasons for them to become more trustworthy in the eyes of a normal person, or less trustworthy, and why would that be?
Absolutely. So yeah, so I myself, like maybe I can talk about the technology I invented. So I invented the technology called liquid neural networks. This is an alternative kind of system to what enables generative AI today. Today, generative AI is built by a system that is called transformers. That's the main kind of building block of these AI systems. So we built this alternative to this system so that it can be adaptable, it can be explainable from beginning, and it is more like the way computation happened in your human brain. So inspiration from the human brain and bring everything into one place, so it becomes the new core for AI systems. Okay, so from first principle, changing the architecture, so innovations across like types of generative AI and the kind of applications we want to make, we want to bring this kind of technology from scratch so that we can trust from the beginning, because the models that we are talking about, we can communicate with them, we can, with mathematical tools, we can go at them and really understand what they do and what are their decision-making processes in order to, and then we can even find out whether the system is biased or not. We can really like understand like where are the limitations of these systems and put boundaries around it and guarantee that a system is actually not hallucinating and give you factual kind of information. And you can basically, and by that you can build trust, right? So innovations, that's the approach that I would take, like to really take just generative AI models, and it's not only generative AI, but also like the whole kind of AI spectrum of automation and systems, agents of future that would be your assistant, would be kind of part of your enterprise. And yeah, so this is how I would formulate it.
So it sounds like, very encouragingly, in fact, it sounds like the direction of travel is definitely towards more explainability,
Correct.
not less. Perhaps in the future, even more explainability than you could get from your human financial advisor.
Yeah.
And Elemi, there's another side of trust, which is not just how the model itself works, but the actual user experience, their interface um, with the recommendations, with whatever plan they're getting given. What how important do you think that sort of interface and user experience is to getting this new technology actually adopted, as opposed to sort of theoretically possible?
Yeah, really good point. When we look at the interface, ultimately, that's essentially the gateway. We look at the communication pattern for millions of years. Individuals have spoken, and what we're seeing now is the use case of these types of models that allows that to be possible. So it allows the ability for you to speak and to be understood and to get a coherent reply that you can also understand. That opens up the window to ensure that how you communicate, whether that's language, whether that's dialect, whether that's within inside of regions, that can be personalized and tailored to you. Now, that's very difficult to find any advisor that can speak 100 languages and understand all these different dialects. But that's possible now with where we are at a point. And almost touching on Ramon's point as well about the, building that trust in the interfaces, ensuring that the process that you go through is almost a collaborative approach with the regulators, ensuring they understand, well, how are you going to communicate what you offer? How is your system going to communicate to make sure that it is clear, it is explainable, and it's understandable by the consumer or business?
It's fascinating. This, I think I saw recently. Meta is going to be releasing smart glasses that use AI and large language models, but to communicate with the user not through text, but through voice and through speaking to you. It almost points to a future in which the touch screen actually isn't our main interface with a lot of technology.
Yeah.
But I guess that's exactly what you're talking about in
That's
the wealth space as well.
exactly. One of the things that we did at Finley AI is we started in this space back in 2019, and we actually at the time had created a conversational assistant where before generative AI, all responses were hand coded by advisors, and we spent 2 years working with the FCA to provide that out to users. So what we're seeing now is almost a full loop, the likes of Meta and other companies that are utilizing, a method that we've been used to doing for millions of years. So there isn't a learning curve to speak of in that case.
Maybe a lot more trust, as you
Yeah.
said as well, though, because as you say, we've been doing it for thousands or millions of years, so it's more natural. Now, we started by talking about some concrete examples that are kind of either already available or nearly available of AI influencing financial services. Let's finish by talking about the future. Mehdi, what do you think what is the dream scenario for how the use of generative AI can change financial services, not just sort of in 5 years' time, but in the distant future? What's the best outcome that we can hope to get from this revolution?
So it's interesting because the discussion turned a lot about trust. And for the industry to adopt this technology, it needs to trust it. And put the technology aside, how we human beings trust one another. First, because we heard from somebody who knows that person and who recommends it, or so a third party recommendation. And probably the best way to build trust is by trying a little bit. So even if if I have 100 to invest and I go to a human asset manager, to a human wealth advisor, I will not give him 100 on day one. I will start by giving him 20 and see how he behaves with it. Then I will increase it little by little. And it's exactly what you are seeing in terms of adoption of the AI within the banks, for example. So when we offer them our solution, what they don't want is to fully go AI. What they want is to use AI within a certain limited space. And how we are able to convince them to bring it is because we are putting a lot of add-ons. Let me give you an example. If the ultimate goal of us is to better serve our clients at a better price, there are some cost cutting to be made. And I'm telling you here, and I'm sure that in the audience there are a lot of us managers or banks. How many people work in the middle and the back office? That represents around 20% of the payroll of any bank. And that's a job which, from my perspective in 2023, it's a job that human beings should not be allowed to do. Reconciling trades, confirming trades, etc. This, in today's world, could be done automatically by the machine, by algorithms, or sometimes even by AI. So this is a nice way to reduce the cost and to bring it back to the clients and reducing threshold at which a bank or a private bank can start getting the clients. So just by doing this, you are creating an environment of trust where the banks or asset managers will see that they will be saving money by adopting this kind of technology. And little by little, you will introduce the AI in order to start advising and managing portfolios, first with a small space of freedom, then you will increase little by little. And as I said, you can really use it as you want. So the AI by itself will not be adapted because it's two beautiful letters, but because it comes as a package of a lot of services that ultimately will make the banks and asset managers bring a better service to the clients at a cheaper cost.
And yeah, I think a lot of people running banks or other institutions would jump at the prospect of reducing their cost base and a part of the institution that you kind of only hear about when things are going wrong. Ramin, what makes you most optimistic about the future of AI's use in finance?
Yeah, I can imagine a future where you can imagine you have an assistant that is always walking with you, as a person, as an industry, or as a personalized kind of, entity in the world. This assistant has the collective knowledge of the humanity, and you have access to all that information whenever you want. So I think it's going to ease our life across like all sectors, and I think this is the kind of ideal future that I see as an agent that is your personal assistant across kind of multiple things, while like providing you with all those information that is actually we generated as humanity, and this would be like the future that I want. And again, this would be like something that I see possible in the next maybe 5 to 10 years.
Thank you. And Elemi, your point of optimism for?
Yes, I think in the same line in that respect, the democratization of knowledge, the democratization of access, and the ability to scale through efficiency by utilizing these models to, as Mehdi said, offshoot the tasks that can be done by computers. And as Raymond mentioned, the ability of a knowledge center that anyone is able to access at any time in any geographical location. We're not far from that.
Well, that sounds very cheery and leaves me looking forward to the future. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.